Good evening folks, this is Best in Slot with your monthly update for Prehistoric Kingdom, the dinosaur park builder that just keeps looking better and better. As per usual, thanks devs, there's a lot to cover here, so buckle down and let's take a look at what's developed over the past month for the game. First up is the state of development graphic that we get each month, but this time it's been developed a lot. We'll do a comparison in a moment, but the graphic now shows stages for basically absolutely everything in development and even includes a helpful chart at the top showing total progression towards the next stage of the game. Now, game development is rarely a linear process, but hopefully this number, which is currently 56%, will still be there in May's dev update and we'll be able to see the pace at which the game is approximately developing. I'd recommend going on the website, which I'll link down below in the description, and checking out this graphic for yourself for the full picture, but we can put it by the update from last month to see just how much more info we're now being given. We've now got a functional key, we've got the building tab split into many more options, and specifics like animal AI have been added. But enough of that, let's get on to the good stuff. This next set of images shows off another one of the game's environments, each of which is present on their own maps, just like the campaign back in Zoo Tycoon 2, and this is the Boreal Forest. We'll talk a little bit more about the terrain later on, it's actually going to be the major focus of this video, but for now let's just focus on how great it is, first of all, to have such sheer variety in our environments. Last week we got this really dry desert environment, this week we have a frigid and imposing subarctic woodland. You can see throughout these images how much even a singular environment can change, from grass to snow to a gravel texture, all within one small area. You should also be able to spot a host of different trees, because each Prehistoric Kingdom biome has 8 different trees present and unique to it. And that's 8 biomes times 8 trees, that's a lot of trees. I'd wager that this Boreal Forest will be a mid-game to late game, sort of like a 60-70% through the game environment, if indeed there is a progression system associated with these islands. It's not quite the subarctic, which we know is in the game, but the steep terrain and low temperatures should make it a fairly challenging environment to build in. We're going to move on to the surprisingly complex and surprisingly awesome nursery system next. Indeed, the devlog suggests it is the most complicated system in the entire game so far. Now let's look at the image first. Here we've got the newly remodeled nursery building, the building from which all of your prehistoric babbies will take their first steps. It doesn't really look particularly nursery-y to me, if I'm honest, but maybe I expected too many pastel colours and obnoxious balloons and screaming children. Anyway, all the usual stats for the nursery, electricity and water usage, cost to run are there, but there's no profit because it doesn't just funnel out babies to sell, basically. For the next part, I'm just going to include the video from the devlog because honestly, this is one of my favourite pieces of UI design ever, and it absolutely deserves to be seen in motion. The new nursery gives you 5 main categories to sort your dinosaurs out by clade, climate, time period, diet and rating. It's already a much deeper search system than most games ever gave us. Do you want to build an exhibit with dinos from one geological period? Easy peasy. Do you want one where they all fit the same approximate grouping, the same clade? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Potentially the most exciting part of it though is how it shows off the ontogeny system in the game, which is honestly one of the best things in the entire game anyway. This is the way the animals change and develop throughout their lifespan from a baby to an adult. You can see the Prehiscephaly not just shrinking, but its features changing realistically depending on the selected age. Likewise the Edmontosaurus further into the video. Between that sliding scale and the easy selection of skins, it's just beautifully easy to produce exactly the dinosaur you want. Everything feels very slick and well produced, and for an indie game in particular, I think this is really, really impressive work. I could talk about this for a long time. We need to move on before I just talk about the UI, because I really could. We also get a brief look next at the ontogeny system again for the Edmontosaurus. You can see the juvenile kind of lacks that bright blue of the adult, the more vibrant yellow greens, that pronounced curvature under the neck, and slightly less pronounced, if I had to guess, the indentations in the spine. It's also smaller, but you know, that goes without saying. I moved the baby across a little bit because I felt bad for it, but frankly I can't make out a bloody thing on it anyway, other than it being tiny, so I don't really know what to say about it. There is also a look on the website at the alternate skin species for the Edmontosaurus, which is the, you're gonna make me say this again, Ugrunalukukpikensis. I don't know why the first bit has to be in an accent a little bit, but it does. I swear they're making me do this on purpose, which you can see, like I say, on the website. Go check it out for yourselves. I do think everyone should be looking on the devlog to see these images and, you know, full size. So I'm going to leave a couple of things in there. We're going to look at about like 90% of the content. I'm going to mention every now and again when there's some extra stuff you can go check out on the website to give them some clicks. Now, the next step gets a little bit technical, only a little bit. I'm going to let the video play out in the background, but what you're seeing here are what are called impostors. And impostors are an alternative or like a more advanced form of billboarding. So, what's a billboard? A billboard in game design are usually 2D polygons that rotate to face whichever direction the camera is pointing. You see a lot of them in VFX effects, smoke and such, especially in older games, but it's still a thing. If you've ever been around a fire in a video game and you've kind of rotated around it and the fire seems to kind of move with you to point towards you, that's billboarding basically. Now the hotels that Prehistoric Kingdom use instead are impostors. Again, like billboards, these aren't fully rendered 3D models that would waste resources and make a scene like this way laggier than it is. Instead what they are is essentially, and again this is as far as I know, this is what my research has shown at least, I think it's essentially, an imposter is multiple billboards essentially arranged together to give the illusion of a 3D model. So at a long distance you shouldn't really be able to tell the difference, but it should look slightly more realistic than a plain old billboard would. I'm not a game dev, so I apologise if my rudimentary googling isn't really accurate on that, but that's kind of the long and short of it. Now this system is used to great effect with the foliage in the game, which has improved monumentally since the demo we've all had our hands on. It's not necessarily easy to make out here, particularly the difference between March and April, but the trees do appear at least somewhat more detailed thanks to this new system, because they are using the imposter system. And either way, both are a huge improvement over what we had previously. It's really good to see this development. Speaking of foliage, however, just this next video is up there with the UI as one of the most exciting we're going to look at. I mean, okay, it's only grass, but it's really nice grass. Not only does each blade like move individually, which is going to be hell for YouTube, by the by, but the way the new textures and colours of grass are brought in looks near perfect. I'd say the edges look a little bit rough from above. There's this weird kind of like slight medium opacity bar around them, which looks a little bit odd, but once the camera drops down further into the video, such worries do dissipate pretty quickly. Even this UI is great though, and I really like the addition in the bottom right you can see of slope painting. Now this is a system that will automatically paint an appropriate rock sort of texture instead of grass if the angle is too tight, which makes a lot of sense. Even the introduction of sand and dirt and ice can't ruin the smoothness of this terrain blending effect, with the edge of each area blending in really well with the previous ones. Terrain tools folks, that's all I ever asked for. I mean, they take tons and tons of work, but just ignore that bit. Just look how good they are. Also, buildings snap to shorelines now. I don't really have anything to say on that, but there you go. Have a look at it. Now, if you wanted evidence of how all these creative options are going to come together, then the following images should help with that. What we have here is a bunch of parks made by the devs to test out how everything works in harmony. Despite them all being on fairly similar islands and terrains, they all manage to look, in my opinion, unique and interesting. Though I do like Mao's the best. Sorry, Nathan. Funnily enough, it might just be me, some of these shots actually look a little bit similar to Planet Zoo. I think the games have a fairly similar approach to visual design. They're not really aiming for photorealism, but instead a slightly fantastical version of reality. It's not full on fantasy and cartoony, but it's a fantasized version of reality, and it means they look a little bit similar from a distance. Either way, it looks great, and I am more than ready to be ashamed of my terrible park designs in the face of everybody else's. Bring it on. Now, every week on the Prehistoric Kingdom Discord, we get some new species profile-esque images highlighting the dinosaurs. So we got to look at Prenocephaly and its tropical dry environment and impossibly colourful head. We got to look at Guanlong in the tropical wet environment. You can really contrast those two really well, and awesome looking alternate skins. We got to look at Yutyrannus in the same environment, and it looks way too happy with itself about it, frankly. And finally we got Dryosaurus, which is back in the tropical dry, and hopefully the Dryosaurus, just a little side note, will have the ability to not spook our humans. You know, a little bit of a old game reference there. if it's, running free around the park. Anyways, there's not much to say in any of these. I recommend you take a look at them on the devlog if you want to look in the, the statistics of each dinosaur in a little bit more detail. But you can also check them out on the Prehistoric Kingdom Discord, and they get posted there fairly regularly, so that'd be a good place to hang out in general. Speaking of climates, however, this devlog announced that due to the ease at which they've been adding these climates to the game, like some of the ones we've seen already, like the boreal forest, all 8 of the planned climates that were eventually going to go into the game are actually all going to be present in the game at launch. There was meant to be 4, now we're going to get 8. So this is this is potentially the most exciting part of the video for me, because having all 8 of those climates, what that means is 8 islands to build on and play on. Each of those islands will have 4 different paintable terrain textures. That means 32 different terrain textures total, as well as 8 unique trees per terrain, or per biome I should say, for 64 total. So we've got 8 different climates and we've got 8 different trees per climate, 64 trees total. Each island is going to look different and present different challenges, but since those biomes are paintable regardless of the environment, it means a staggering number of terrain textures available in theory in every single park you build. That's 32 terrain tool options for painting terrain. That's insane. It's actually almost too many. Some of them are going to feel neglected and unloved because how are you possibly going to use all of them? This must be the most terrain tools a game has had at release, right? It's got to be. That's of course a very good problem to have, and I cannot overstate how big I cannot overstate my excitement for terrain tools of this magnitude and variety. It's really, really cool. Next up, we get a quick look at the updated gift shop. Again, not much to say on this one. It's got a slightly better model and texture, and the Rex looks far too happy since it seems to have been interdimensionally teleported into the gift box, a la the Cloverfield Paradox, which is a bad film, don't watch it, but it let me make a reference at least. Next up in this never-ending list of things for me to download and talk about, despite not really knowing what I'm talking about, is the new animation set for the small Ornithiscian dinosaurs, including the dinosaur that keeps popping up today, Prehistoric. I'm just going to let this play through in a moment, but as you watch, keep an eye out for small animations like the way one foot moves back first when drinking, or the little waggle of the tail as it sleeps, oh so painfully adorably. It's these little details that give these animals their life and vigour, and all the other cliche stuff I always say about good animations. The last thing for today then, folks, and there is some other stuff, there's some audio on the website if you want to go check it out, is the Dinosaur Showcase section. Typically the one people look forward to the most, and therefore obviously the one that the devs leave for the very end. First on our list is Guanlong and its alternate skins. We've got a fairly tame central one, but the other two are much more interesting. The one on the left in particular is really reminiscent of multiple modern birds, and the closed mouth with that curvature makes the dinosaur look really, really bizarrely pleased with itself. The one on the right with that leopard print-esque skin looks much more menacing. I think that's at least partially because of the darker eyes as well. Following on from the Guanlong is one of my personal all-time favourite dinosaurs, the dinosaur that was going to be in my book, the Yutyrannus. We're going to look at 5 different skins for this feathery beast, with the males standing out as the substantially more vividly coloured, just like modern birds basically. The third one along with that bright blue and yellow nasal area reminiscent of a, well, blue and yellow macaw, is probably my favourite. The Yutyrannus though is well known for its feathery hide, at least as far as we know. Who bloody knows these days? And I think this set of skins does a far better job at giving us a creature that is both threatening whilst maintaining that feathery, cuddly kind of coverage. Much better than say the demo version of the T-Rex that Prehistoric Kingdom first shipped with. The final dinosaur, and indeed our final video segment, is the Dryosaurus, coming in both a feathered and unfeathered variant. The unfeathered looks somewhat like you'd expect and isn't too dissimilar from the version we all played with back in Operation Genesis, but the feathered one, oh boy, not only is the feather coverage surprisingly thick and dense looking across the back, if you focus on the line where the feathers fade into the skin, not only does it have some unique looking horizontal banding across its back as well, but it's also absolutely fuming about something. This red-throated Dryosaurus, the male, again with a little bit more colour, is not happy about something, or it has the worst case of resting really annoyed dinosaur face that I've ever seen. I kinda hope it's both. Anyway, there we go folks, another month, another PK devlog. I say that, but this is only the second time we've actually ever done this, but still. Let's focus on the dinosaurs themselves this month. The terrain tools absolutely stood at the forefront, and for good reason, as they really do look phenomenal. What in this month's log are you most excited to get your hands on for yourself? For me, definitely the variety and terrain tools. Let me know in the comments down below. Throw me a like if you found this video informative, and be sure to check out the description for a link to the Prehistoric Kingdom website and the blog, which contains all the images you've seen today, plus a few extra tidbits like the audio and the Ugrinalak, whatever the hell it's called, that I left out of the video on purpose. I do apologise if at some point in this video it sounds like I changed. I had a massive coughing fit and I thought I was going to die. But we must proceed on, because this is a noble profession. Thanks for joining me. Cheers much love as always. Bye bye. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to help support me a little bit more, you can do so at patreon.com/bestinslot. There's a link in the description down below. Every little really does help in times like these, but it's not at all expected, and by just watching the video you've already helped me out massively, and it makes you a pretty cool person, so well done you. Thanks for joining me either way, I'll see you next time.